Hello and welcome to the next episode of The Conscious Female Founder. I am your host, Sally Tarbox. I am the proud owner of this podcast and YouTube channel. I'm also the owner of a company called The Empowerment Movement, where I coach other women and female entrepreneurs on how to add income streams to their business. I've also had the absolute honor of being featured on Fox TV's Women of Influence out in the States. And I'm also an international bestselling author. But today isn't about me. Today is about a wonderful lady who's sitting down with me today to talk to us about her journey and her business and how she is supporting other people. So I'd love to introduce you to Laura Bloomberg. She is the founder of Fertility Avenue, and she's helping women all over the world as they go through a fertility journey and the struggles and the strains that they might come up with in regards to emotionally, but physically as well. She is an absolute wonderful woman. I'm so honored to be sat down with you today because I really do feel obviously this is something that needs to be talked about. Let's kind of like take the sort of like the mask off of it all and really bring this to light, because there are so many women all over the world that are struggling in this particular area, and whether they're struggling surrounded by support, whether they're struggling in silence. So your job is so important. I think it's so wonderful what you are doing. So thank you so much for joining me. Like it was a real honor. I mean, I haven't been down sort of like the fertility and the IVF journey myself, so I don't understand it to the degree that you do, but I have had friends that have. So I just think this is such an important conversation. Absolutely. I really, really hope it hits with women that need it right now, because your support is unbelievable. But obviously I've introduced you slightly, but maybe you could just take a moment to introduce yourself properly and give us a bit of a backstory of kind of where you've been, where you've come from, and what you're sort of doing today.
Oh, well, thank you, Sally. That was a beautiful introduction. And thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast. Absolutely. Really, really looking forward to this. As you say, you may not have been through it yourself, but I'm sure you know people. Yes. People know people. Unfortunately, fertility difficulties are on the increase. People are talking about it more now. People more aware of it. Various reasons in society, our lifestyles, the chemicals, the foods, lots of other areas that are affecting our fertility. So unfortunately, I always say to my clients, I wish I didn't have to have you as a client, or I wish I wasn't busy. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And I'm getting more and more clients now on different journeys, but all to do with fertility. But just to start off with, to say why I do what I do.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
So I had my own difficult fertility journey, which started about 23 years ago. I had a variety of medical complications, which meant that I was unable to conceive naturally. Despite trying just for a few months, it became obvious that it wasn't going to be the case. So after a couple of operations and various drugs being put into my body, it was a fait accompli that I was told that I needed IVF. Which, in itself was quite a shocking message to hear from the doctor, but I had to embrace it then and there. And if that was my only route of possibly conceiving and getting the family that I had always dreamed of, then that was the route we had to go down. There was no choice. So my husband and I were in this together, and we went down the IVF route. So that in itself is a difficult journey. Lots of bumps in the road there. Fortunately, my first round of IVF was successful. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is pretty much a done deal now. How great was that? How wrong was I? Because unfortunately, the 12-week scan, we found out that the baby had aborted, self-aborted, and then I needed to go through the various next steps to clear my system out. A miscarriage is never easy, whether it's at 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, and then obviously going beyond that is even, is tragic as well. And we all have our own stories and our own emotions. But after having IVF and getting to that point, to then have a miscarriage was like another double whammy of emotion and trauma. It also wasn't easy for me because I was coupled with the fact that my sister at the same time was literally 3-4 weeks ahead of me in a pregnancy. And we had already planned, the cousins growing up together, and it would have been beautiful and this and that. So her pregnancy fortunately continued, and lucky. Unfortunately, mine didn't. So there were huge emotions going on there, and absolutely elated for my sister, but equally pained with grief.
Devastated.
Devastated. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we went through various further rounds of frozen embryo transfers and a couple more fresh, and unfortunately, they didn't work. Then I changed clinic. I just found the whole process so stressful. And
completely.
What was adding to the stress was the journey to the clinic that I was at, because it was on the other side of London. And I knew that stress, impacts fertility. And I just thought, where can I alleviate or eliminate other stress factors? And also, I felt very much like I was a number and not a person at the clinic I was at. And I wanted a little bit more personalized treatments. I wanted to be treated like Laura and not like number 3571.
Yes. Yeah, completely.
I was being seen by different different scanographers, different consultants. I just wanted one person with a small team. Anyway, we changed clinics to somewhere more local to where I lived. And he was a fantastic person, and like a little bit of a professor, a little bit of a professor, but he really looked at me as a person as a whole, and found different routes. It wasn't like a standard formula. And fortunately, first round with him, I fell pregnant, and 9 months later, my daughter was born, who is about to turn 22 actually this weekend.
It's amazing.
So that was a beautiful story there. We without shadow of a doubt, stayed with the same consultant, tried for a second child, had various frozen transfers and a couple more fresh, and it just didn't work. And you know what? We were very, very grateful for having a daughter, and we actually decided, to stop trying. We felt that we didn't know what the effects were going to be on my physical body, as well as the emotional. And we decided to stop. And then about a year later, I said to my husband, something's just talking to me. There is something, I just feel we need to go for it one more time. And he was like, are you sure? It's not necessarily about the money, it's about what it's doing to you and your emotional state. I said, no, I really just want to just give it one more go. And I almost had to sign a contract to say, I promise you, if it doesn't work again, that's it. Well, excuse me. Fortunately, I listened to my hunch and it worked.
Yes.
And gave birth to my beautiful son, who is now 16 years old. And that was my story. But it had its bumps in the road all the way along. I've made it sound very brief, but
I think the way you've described it is incredible. Like, obviously, for someone that's not been down that particular journey, I can only come and empathize everything that you must have gone through, because yes, like you said, it's not just the physical, it's the emotional as well. It is the emotional.
It's like being on a roller coaster. It really is. It's it's feeling stuck, that feeling of isolation, hopelessness, guilt, that anger, all those sort of uncontrollable emotions swinging from hope to hopelessness.
Yes, and I can completely understand how it's the stress of it as well, right?
Oh my gosh.
The stress on your physical body, but also on your mind and your emotions as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've obviously, like I said, I've never been through this, but the only way I can sort of liken to it is I've got a really good friend, and she went through IVF. This was a good couple of years ago, and I know when she was kind of going through it at the time, she didn't actually tell anyone, and she didn't really talk about it too much. It was a very private journey between her and her partner, but kind of as she was going through the process, there was a time when I met up with her, and she did tell me, and she opened up and she was like, this is what we're going through. And I remember at the time kind of listening to her words, and she was very matter of fact about it. She was like, these are the things I've got to do. And I remember at the time, like my brain literally boggling with all this information she was giving me, but she knew it. Like she knew what was going on. She knew the processing. She almost was, I don't want to say emotionless to it, but it's almost like, because I remember reflecting on it afterwards, and I remember thinking, my God, like if I was telling this story, I'd probably be really, really upset. But I could actually liken it to other situations I've been in when there've been very heightened emotions, but I've had to do something at the same time. Absolutely. And it's almost like when you then talk to someone about it, you kind of shut the emotion off. Like, this is what
the mask
I want.
on.
Yeah, exactly that, right? Yeah, like this is what I want. These are the steps I've got to take. And then quietly on your own. And I remember that was the thing that kind of hit me about when she was talking to me about it, because I just sat there and I was like, I only can obviously envisage and empathize that you're going through such huge emotions behind closed doors.
Oh yes.
And obviously you've got your partner there to support you, and I love that, and they're a lovely couple. But I can remember being like, wow, like I just admire you for the fact that you're like very sort of methodical in what you've got to do because you want something, and absolutely go for it. But equally at the same time, I have so much empathy of what you're actually
going through behind closed doors. Yeah. No, often when you're going through assisted treatment, not all my clients, by the way, go through assisted treatment. Some of them are able to conceive naturally or try naturally, and they just they just need that extra emotional support, or they've had some trauma happen to them. But those that go through the assisted treatment, particularly when they get to the point of having IUI or IVF, they do a lot of research. There's almost like there is a process. They know what the drugs are, and when so especially with Google these days and everything, and ChatGPT, they're able to do a lot of research. The knowledge is really there. So there's sort of that transactional sort of side to it. And also the treatment is quite formulaic. Obviously we don't know how the body's going to respond and exactly when, but it is in steps and stages, and that's how it is. And that's one side of things, which can be overwhelming in itself. All the medical jargon, getting to know, organizing appointments around work schedules or family life or whatever, holidays. So that's one thing. And then you've got the emotion that definitely is there, but often they wear that mask. But that mask in front of friends or in front of work colleagues is on. But as soon as the doors are closed or on their own, that mask peels off. And that's when the emotions, and I'm not saying emotions are bad, by the way. Emotions,
no, not at all, not at all.
Our emotions are actually really healthy.
They're really healthy, they're really good.
And they guide us, or we need to learn how to use them to guide us towards next positive steps, But it's understanding what those emotions are doing and why we're having those emotions that's really important in order to be able to use them in a positive way.
Absolutely. And that's why I love you, and I admire you for what you're doing, because you've obviously been through the journey, you've walked the steps, but equally at the same time you're helping women use their emotions in a positive way. So just talk to me a little bit about like how you support women, or kind of like how you work with them now.
So when a client reaches out to me, we have a discovery call, and I say generally it's about a 20-minute discovery call, but I definitely don't put the timer on it. For example, I had a new client last night calling a discovery call, and it went on for an hour, and that's fine because she needed just to offload, and and that's this is her absolute time. So it's not restricted to 20 minutes, and then the bell goes, and I say, right, either sign up or don't. That's not the way it is. And it's really important also in that discovery call that the client knows that they're able to align with you, and because if you're going to be coaching them, they've got to have you've got to have a rapport with them. And they might not like the way I look, they might not like the way I sound, or they might not like my approach, and that's fine. Not everybody gravitates. Anyway, so that discovery call is really important. If then after the discovery call, I never ask them I never say to them, well, what do you want? I always tell them to go away and think about it, talk to their partner, reflect on the conversation. I've never not had anybody come back to me.
Oh, amazing.
but that's got to be their choice, because when they enter the coaching, as anyone would with any coaching or counselling, they've got to be fully comfortable with what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Then I just send them a client agreement form to fill out, you know, terms and conditions of the sessions, and then a questionnaire as well, just so I get some background information about the journey to date.
Yes.
Understanding what, you know, maybe what supplements they're taking, as well as other things as well. And then the coaching sessions typically will obviously be bespoke to the client.
Yes. And I think that's where, like, when I posted obviously a post yesterday about like us having this conversation, I really wanted to highlight that is that this isn't a cookie cutter approach, and it can't be, right? Because every woman is different, every woman's journey is different, every woman's body is different, and I love what you're doing because it's so bespoke to them. So you're really taking the time to invest in these women, listen to them,
100%.
and then work it around what they want,
because one program is not going to fit all. And I've actually learned that as I've gone along, because I did actually train on to deliver a program, and there are elements of the program that I still use in my own way, in my own bespoke way, but actually I've found that it's not suited to everybody, and if I don't adapt and respond to what the client needs, well, then that's not going to be helping the client.
Yes, absolutely.
So I now just say to rather than getting people to sign up to a program or an 8 to 8 weeks, which is expensive layout to begin with, I just say let's just do ad hoc sessions. You know, I obviously can't expect changes necessarily after literally the first session. They'll notice some things and go away with food for thought.
Absolutely right. Yes,
but don't expect your whole journey to be suddenly
completely different,
because it's accumulative, and the more sessions they have, and I always describe I'm the guide by their side. So you know, I'm there not just at the sessions, but in between sessions. So if they're having a wobble or they're having a triggering moment and they need somebody to talk to or text, they can call me at any point they want. You know, even in the middle of the night, my phone's off, so it won't wake me up, but at least I'll get it in the morning, and I will always, you know, get back to them within hours, if possible, minutes if I can. So so the sessions don't follow a specific format, but generally what we do is I would obviously hear their story, but look at the emotional challenges that a client is currently experiencing. Then we will identify small steps, small achievable steps, in order for those significant shifts to be able to occur. Connect with the emotions and be in tune with their feelings. That's really important. And, you know, not be scared of those emotions, not to apologize for the feeling of guilt or sadness or anger or jealousy or whatever it is that they're experiencing, because that's a huge thing. You know, they keep apologizing to me, and it's like, no,
it's okay.
It's okay, and it's good. We just need to know how to embrace them and move on with them. We might then look at explore current coping strategies. You know, how are they coping with pregnancy announcements? How are they coping with having to take time to work? How are they coping with these comments that families and friends make, maybe all in good intended comments from their side, but actually they could be the most triggering comments. Oh, just relax, go on holiday, don't worry, it's going to happen. That's not helpful.
No.
You know, anyway, so we have all these coping strategies that we need to explore. Then this is not an order, by the way, but
no, right.
We might replace unhelpful patterns of thinking and behavior. So if they've got you know, past experiences or limiting beliefs or negative thoughts, well, you know, how is that actually helping them on their journey? And can we reframe them in a positive way to make it not an unhelpful pattern of thinking and behavior, but actually make it helpful, make it positive? So there's a lot of that. We talked about replacing limiting thoughts and with good empowering ones. We also nurture a really strong connection between their mind and their body, because the two work together.
They do. They 100% do.
They do.
I love that you just said this. I love that you said this, because, sorry to butt in, but this is, I love that you've just said this, because I do think, now look, I'm not poo-pooing Western medicine here at all. There is a need for it, okay?
Of course.
But I do think sometimes we separate the two.
Yes.
So if there's something, I don't want to say something wrong in your mind, that's not how I want to word it. What I'm trying to say is, if you are suffering mentally, you go and see one doctor. And if you're suffering with a bad back or a pain in here, or oh, I've got stomach ache, you go to see someone else.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually the two are so
intertwined. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
So I love that you've just pointed that out. And the thing that I say to a lot of my clients or people that I work with, I'm like, disease is just dis-ease within the body. So let's find out what's going on. Let's find out what's behind it. So I love that you said that. Sorry to butt in there.
No, absolutely. This is a conversation. This is brilliant. So the mind and body need to work together in harmony. If the mind is saying, I'm not going to fall pregnant, I don't deserve to fall pregnant, I'm never going to fall pregnant, why should I fall pregnant, I'm going to be a bad mum, or whatever, and that the body is wanting to fall pregnant, if they're not talking from the same hymn sheet, there's going to be that disparity, and it's going to cause unhelpful stress hormones. It's going to cause conflict within. You know, us women spend a lot of our lives or growing up being told about contraception. You know, don't fall pregnant too young. Make sure you take precautions, and then, you know, going on the pill, and then suddenly, you know, maybe they get married, or maybe they don't get married, they're with a partner, they decide they want to fall pregnant, and literally within 24 hours, suddenly everything that
everything's coming back up again.
They've got to then undo and then tell their body, actually, my body's now ready to fall pregnant. So it's these messages that we're giving us, and we've basically been told, and subconsciously it's all gone in.
That's interesting. Isn't that interesting? I'd never thought of it like that. That's so true, isn't it? Especially as you're growing up.
Girls, you know, live life in fear of you know, falling pregnant when they don't want to, and suddenly they want to fall pregnant, and then they can't. And that's because there's disparity between what the subconscious and the conscious and the mind and the body. So we support that connection through a variety of techniques I use, which I can tell you about in a minute.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really, really appreciate it, because like I said, I do think it's really important to kind of take the mask off and talk about these things. And it's lovely that women have almost I kind of foresee you as just like that almost like that just safe space to come to, right? And just talk about and to work through, but equally at the same time you have the understanding of the journey, and equally then we're kind of incorporating the emotional side of it as well, and 100%. That is just so incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Obviously you didn't always do this.
No.
What, I guess, and obviously you went through your own journey, where did you get to in life where you kind of, I don't know whether I'm saying, like, where did you get to when you processed everything? Because obviously you went through a huge range of emotions, you went down this particular journey, but where was the point where you kind of like came out the other side and were like, actually, do you know what, like, this has been such a pivotal point in my life, I now want to help other people? Was there a particular moment?
So I'm actually, my background is in education, so I'm actually I was a teacher. I am still a dyslexia specialist. So I'm very much I'm definitely in this world to help people. There's no doubt about it. Whether it's people in my job, or my profession, my pupils or parents of. I'm also a helper with friends. I'm a very much
you're the person that everyone comes to.
And, not necessarily solve the problem.
No. It's the same space again, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I've been in education all my life, and as I say, I'm still in it as well, because that's my passion as well. But it was about 5 years ago, I decided to do an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming mindset coaching course. And at that point I wasn't too sure who my niche was going to be. I thought maybe it could be for the pupils that I'd support, with children with neurodiverse difficulties, or parents of children. And as I was doing it, and I just thought, no, actually, I want to support women on a fertility journey, because I recognized how I would have benefited from such emotional support when I was going through it. But I didn't know if there was anybody out there. I don't think there would have been. I was offered counseling, but that was more about making sure that I was mentally strong enough to to have the
Mm.
IVF treatment. It wasn't necessarily about supporting me throughout the journey emotionally and having
Yes.
a guide by my side.
Yes.
So I just decided, it was almost like a split change in decision. It was I'm not sure if I want to support the parents of children. Actually, no, I don't. I want to actually be giving out something that I want to give back
Yeah.
something that I never received, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I recognized there was this need and niche in the market that would, by supporting these women. And I've never looked back. I went on and did a fertility coaching course.
Yeah.
I'm a trained hypnotherapist.
Yes, I love it. Therapy.
And I'm also an EFT, emotional freedom, also known as energy tapping practitioner.
Yes.
And so with those different techniques, I'm not saying I use, my coaching techniques is always used in how I guide conversations,
Absolutely.
regardless whether they're a client or a friend or a family. It doesn't matter. It's the way you phrase the questions and the
Yes, of course.
response, guiding my clients to come to their own conclusion and their own shifts and outcomes. But also the not NLP, the hypnotherapy and the EFT are both really super powerful, effective, science-backed techniques that help connect the mind and the body, help to reduce the stress, help in the moment or out otherwise, and get the subconscious mind. And so the blend of those techniques, that's how my clients make those important changes and shifts.
Yeah, and that's coming back to the point that I just made about sort of like the mind and the body, like you said, they are together. And this is where I absolutely believe when you incorporate the Western medicine and medical side of things, obviously, but you bring in the holistic as well.
Yes,
that's when there's can be some really, really powerful shifts.
100%.
But for anybody kind of going through anything, and that's definitely where I found it in my particular life. There's definitely been times in my life where I have needed Western medicine because of certain situations. But equally at the same time, I have coupled that with the holistical side of things, like you said, with the hypnotherapy, with the NLP, with the EFT. Absolutely. And that's when then I've seen real
shifts. Absolutely. I also am currently doing a trauma-informed course to be a trauma-informed coach, obviously, because pregnancy loss is a trauma, a huge trauma. And so, by offering that sort of safe, non-judgmental space, it's important that clients process that trauma and grief in order to be able to move on to create that really important fertile environment, reproductive. Because if you're holding on to past trauma, that will hold on and rear its ugly head at some point, and it's not going to be helping that harmony between the mind and body connection. So that's also, really important. But equally, as well as the emotional side, and we talked about the physical side, I'm a gut health specialist.
Amazing.
And a cell health specialist, and I've done a fertility nutrition course. So I'm not a nutritionist. I would never ever take that title be something that I'm not. But I've done a course in fertility nutrition, and I also work for a test-based global nutrition company who are all about providing natural food-based pharmaconutrition supplements for everyone's general well-being. But it's really important for those that are on a fertility, not even a difficult fertility journey, anybody that's thinking about conceiving in the future, to prepare your body, to give your body at least 4 to 6 months before even trying, so that it is in optimum fertile health. And it's all about making sure that our bodies are not inflamed at the cellular level. We have trillions, 37 trillion cells in our body. It's really important that those cells are not inflamed and that we reduce that inflammation, because then the cells are able to work efficiently, and that includes the egg quality, sperm quality. It's not just about the woman. And so I prepare women on knowing how to best be in optimum health prior to conceiving, or if they're on a fertility journey and a difficult one, we do look at what supplements they're taking, their diet, their exercise, to make sure, because it all works together.
It all works in harmony.
It's a jigsaw. And if the mind's not working or the emotion's not working, but equally the physical aspect, then that could be a really simple and easy solution and fix to help everything start to work in synergy together.
Yeah, it really is a puzzle, isn't it? It really is a puzzle, and putting those pieces together. And that's why I think what you're doing, I feel what you're doing is so hugely important, because yes, you can obviously go down the IVF route, and I'm assuming that would be like very the Western sort of, yep, these are the medicines you take, this is the process. But there is so much more to it, and that's why I love that you're shining a light on this, because you're supporting women in that area as well.
Yeah,
so whether it be the health, the nutrition, the gut health, but also the emotions as well. Like, it's
absolutely.
yeah.
And you know, and what I would love is for more people to come to me before having difficulties.
Yes, of course.
You know, we're going to think about trying to conceive within the next year or this next 6 months.
Yeah.
What can I do, or what can we do? So let's take the I out of it. What can we do to give ourselves the best possible chance of not just conceiving, but conceiving a having a healthy pregnancy full term, and conceiving a healthy child at the end of it.
Yes.
So it's preparing the body, and hopefully by preparing the body and the mind, then we might eliminate or alleviate a lot of women who are having difficulties and having to then go through IVF, because we've actually done the fixing before we've even got the problem.
Yes, right. It's almost like the foundational work, isn't it? It's the foundational work that comes before it, but we don't really think about that. No. And I'll be quite honest, I haven't really thought about it until you just said it, and it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, right?
Yes.
We're preparing things before we go into that journey, as opposed to being like, well, I hope this works.
Yeah. It's like you don't get married and turn up to the church or the place of worship on the day without any preparation.
No.
You spend 6 months, a year, 2 years preparing for that one day, which is great. But actually, how much preparation goes into a baby? Well, perhaps sometimes it's not even any preparation. It's just a few minutes of passion.
Yes, exactly that, right? Yeah.
Well, is that going to create, so getting your body baby ready is really, really, really important.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I really appreciate that and talking to us about that. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
One of the questions I had for you, which I don't know if to put a trigger warning around it or not, but like, I assume because obviously society has changed so much, right? So the age of women getting pregnant is not what it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, obviously. And we know that, right? 50 years ago, women were having babies in their 20s. Now women are having babies in their 30s and even sometimes their 40s.
Yeah.
And do you see that a lot, that you are having such a big age range on women?
Yes. Yeah, no, I've got clients ranging from mid to late 20s to early 40s.
Yeah.
And that's life choices.
Absolutely, right. Of course,
maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they hadn't met the right partner. Maybe work circumstances, maybe financial circumstances. But it's that there are women are now more in the workforce, so that's great. But I do see a range of ages, and obviously it's fact, it's science, that the older you are, your egg quality starts to diminish and decrease, so it could become more challenging or more difficult. And then you have that sort of race against your biological clock if you are having problems. So I have a range of ages of clients coming to see me. And the younger ones don't necessarily feel the age clock is against them, but obviously when they're getting into their 30s or mid late 30s, early 40s, there is another added pressure.
And that's what I wanted to highlight. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's feeling that pressure, isn't it? That pressure of like age. Like, I've only got one daughter, I'm in my late 30s, and I do think there's that element of kind of like, and people do say to me quite a lot, like, you're gonna have another baby, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not in that situation. But it's quite a big question to ask someone, and especially when it might be something that consciously they've got in the back of their mind.
Yes, absolutely. Society, there's huge societal pressures, there's huge religious pressures in certain communities. And there's that often that elephant in the room where people are thinking, are you going to have another one, or why aren't you having one, why haven't you had fallen pregnant? And people say things, people sometimes hold back, people think about the consequences of their comment. And that's huge as well, especially when you are on a difficult fertility journey. They know that you know that they know, but you don't want to talk about it. And
Yeah.
then suddenly they come out with a comment, and that is just could be so triggering. So
Yeah.
that's, there's huge societal pressures at the moment
Yes.
that people, and with access to social media,
Yeah.
we tend to see only the good things on social media.
Oh gosh, right, don't
We
we?
forget there's a door that gets shut, or and people aren't necessarily as open and outward about the negative side of their life
Mhm,
and things that
mhm.
aren't necessarily going as well, but very happy to share the wonders, and the wonders,
Yes,
the I
right. It's
am,
all
look
the
who I am.
great you yeah,
We're all human,
yeah,
and we all have, things that are going on that aren't all wonderful,
yeah,
um, but you don't show that. So that
yeah,
again, there's those, for the youngsters addicted to their phones and use that
yeah,
as their guide in life. It's not
yeah.
necessarily very.
Yeah, it's not helpful. I guess from the other side, if you have a friend or you have a family member who you know is going through the IVF journey, what would be your advice to them to check in with that person? So I guess my
So what
question.
would be, so if you, for example, if you knew that a cousin of yours was going
Absolutely.
through.
If I knew a cousin of mine or one of my really good friends was going through that journey, and I obviously want to ask them about it, but I don't want to say anything that's triggering. So I think
It
sometimes
depends.
people shy away from it, or they just come
Yes.
out with something, and then it's only afterwards you think, oh, like
That
that's not how I meant it. Like I meant
yes.
to come from a place of love, and actually I've probably really upset them, and that's not what I wanted. So what would be your advice if you
Well, my
know
advice would be
someone?
there is no one set piece of advice, because
Yeah,
it depends on the relationship you've
of
got have
course.
with that person.
Yeah.
It depends if that person has told you already that they're going through a difficult
Mm.
fertility journey, or do you just know from somebody else in the family that they're going through it?
Yeah.
If they haven't specifically told you, then I would say it's important to respect that they haven't told you for a reason, in
Yeah.
which case, unfortunately,
Even better.
there's not a huge amount that you can do directly to that person about their fertility journey, because they've chosen to keep it quiet and
Yeah.
silent. And I think the best thing you could do is to respect that.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
If,
agree.
however, you've got that connection with them and they have told you that they're on a difficult fertility journey, but they don't necessarily want to expand on the details, which is nobody else's business,
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
knowing that they're on a difficult fertility journey is enough.
Yes.
Then it, either a conversation or a text, just to say, I appreciate. I think it's to make sure they know that you're there for them if you
Yeah.
need them to be there for you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate, you're going through a challenging time or a journey. I'm here for you in whatever capacity, even if it's
Yes.
going out, even if it's going, I don't need you to talk to me about the journey, but if you just going out for a day of shopping or
Yeah. Just
or
go
a
out for a cup of
meal,
tea in a
you know,
cave, or just
it's
go
yeah,
for a walk. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it could be very sensitive, because different people will react in different ways, and it could be that your most well-intended comments or reaching out to them actually triggers them.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that was
yeah,
yeah.
it's a
That was kind of
difficult
what I was.
one.
Yeah, a
Um,
really, really tricky one. So I guess it's almost like letting people know that they've got a safe space if they need it.
Correct.
Equally at the same time, yeah, if you want to go for a walk and
Yeah.
actually talk about something completely different, we can do
Yeah.
that too.
And if they do talk to you about their journey, it's not, I think my advice would be for the person listening is not to pretend that you know what they're going through, and to say, oh yeah, I get that. And then to start talking about, oh yes, I know somebody else that's been through this.
Yes,
It is
right.
that you need to listen, you need to be the listener.
Yeah.
Listen to them and validate their feelings and say,
Yeah.
I hear you. Look, I appreciate I might not understand exactly what you're going through, because that wasn't my journey, but I hear what you're saying, and I know, I respect what you're saying, and your feelings are so validated. It must be awful,
Yes.
because there's nothing worse than someone's telling you a story, pouring their heart out and going, yeah, but it'll be okay. You'll fall
Yeah.
pregnant one day. That is
Yeah.
just not helpful. So
Yeah.
it's meeting them to where they are,
Yeah.
rather than trying to be the fixer, because you can't be the fixer.
No, you can't be the fixer.
You
No.
can't you can't give them that, you can't tell them that everything's going to be okay, because it might
You
not
don't
be.
know.
So it's meeting them to where they are and making them feel loved and supported.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful response. And yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. Just letting them know that they are loved, and they're supported,
and that you're there for them,
and you're there for them, you know, in whatever, like I said, in
whatever capacity that might be,
that needs to be for them,
you know. And it could be, you know, if you ever want me to come down to a doctor's appointment with you or a scan with you, I don't need to come into the room.
Exactly. I could just drive you there and
drive
wait
you
in the
there,
waiting
or
room,
come on the train with you. I could go shopping while you're there, you know, because that's often a very lonely part of the process. Often, I'm not saying all the time, the partner is at work and can't go all the time, and that's a very lonely. I remember I used to have my sister or my mum or my friend, even a parent once came with me, just having somebody in that car, you know, because you don't know what your results are going to be when you go for that scan or that blood test, or you know, just knowing that someone's there to join you is really beautiful.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I really appreciate that, because like I'd never thought of that, because I've not gone through the journey. So thank you for highlighting that for us, and talking about that, so that we can be aware as well from the other side of actually just sometimes where the support needs to be or can be actually in the very smallest, simplest of ways is
absolutely.
From a business perspective, obviously you've been doing this for 5 years now, and I'm sure you've seen some incredible women go through, and obviously lots of different varying journeys. What are your hopes, or kind of like, where's the business going for you? Because you're helping women all over the place, and this is why I love having this conversation with you, because there are women all over the world that need support and help that you're obviously offering. What are the hopes for the business for the rest of the year?
The business is obviously we'd love to have some more Fertility Avenue babies. We're getting quite a few coming through the door. That would be amazing. But actually, you know, that's a great, it's not a goal, because we can't, you know, predict that and whatever. It's just to help women, really, more women feel calm, confident, emotionally in control on their journey, to get more women to open up, to recognize that they need and will benefit from having emotional support. You know, a lot of my clients were in denial. They didn't think they needed it. And then it's when they crumble and they fall apart, then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to turn to. I don't know who to turn to. And so it's just, you know, getting the message out there, really, that this service exists, that it's, you know, it's out there, and to just embrace it and recognize the importance of looking after the emotional as well as the physical. So it's just really just to get the message out there.
Amazing. And I think that's my one ask actually from this podcast, is that if anybody does watch this and you know someone who's going through this journey, or whether it be yourself, please share this, please share it, because I do think this is such an important subject to highlight, and it is one, as I'm a big believer in women supporting women. So please, if there is somebody, just go ahead and share it, and whether they listen to it is completely up to them.
Absolutely. Just letting people know that I exist, or that there are coaches that exist, and then what they do is how they take it from there is entirely up to them. But if they don't know it exists, then how are they going to know to make that informed choice?
So the one question I normally ask at the end of every interview that I do with people, but I know that it is, well, for this one it might be a bit different. One of the last question I ask is, if there's one piece of advice that you could give somebody who's in your shoes now, that you were obviously all those years back, right at the beginning, when you were going through kind of this change and this journey, what would be that piece of advice you would give them? Now, obviously for you, this is it's a huge question.
I would say, be kind to yourself. Don't be your worst own enemy. And give yourself time and self-love and care. Because if we're going to be hard on ourselves and we're going to beat ourselves up the whole time, nothing else can fall into place. We've got to take this and really look after ourselves. Validate your feelings. Know that you're not alone. Be kind to yourself, and then those changes will start to occur organically.
Thank you, Laura, so much.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you so much for talking to me about this. Like I said, I obviously haven't been through this process, but I have so much love for people that do. But I equally have so much love for you and the way you are supporting women. Like, thank you, because I am a big believer in women supporting other women, and whether that be very much in a very private, tailored way, or whether that be like we're doing now. But it's just so important to know that there are people out there like you, there are coaches out there like you, who have not only been through the journey yourself, so you have personal experience, but you have the professionalism and obviously the certifications and the holistical side and the medical knowledge as well that kind of comes behind it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a great chat.
It has. It's been lovely. What I will do, I will drop your links below. So I'll drop your social media links below and your website below. And I do obviously encourage people to share this episode with people that you might know that are struggling in this particular area.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you so much. Take care, my love.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.